are they able to give people news in a way that, may be hard to find elsewhere, or are they able to present in a way that really discusses and captivates people and really educates the audience, or is it just all about the ratings? Because look, I'll do videos. I've done many videos on Israel, for example, that don't do very well, but I still do videos on it, on the conflict, because they're important. It's important, I think, for me to cover it. So MSNBC, a place like that, of course they're covering that issue, but they're not always going to give you the perspective. They're not always going to prioritize the objective reporting. They're not always going to prioritize a challenge of power. They're going to prioritize ratings, and that goes to how they present the information. That goes to how they frame. Framing is everything when it comes to the information. It's what they decide to cover and how they frame that story. Everything else in between is just filler. It's all in the framing, all in the presentation. And Mehdi Hasan, I think, has again been the unique voice. To be fair, Ayman is actually pretty good as well, as is Ali Velshi. But Mehdi Hasan, I think, stands head and shoulders above everybody else in his ability to really discuss the news in a way that no one else can, and challenges power, I think, most importantly, challenges power in a way that no one else does. But this gets to, as well, all the context, because it isn't just Mehdi Hasan's show. It's the entire weekend is being scrambled up. So the changes, which will take effect on January 13th, so it's not an immediate cancellation, will alter almost every hour of the weekend, where MSNBC has apparently struggled in the ratings for years through a series of lineup revamps. So they have a new show called The Weekend with Alicia Menendez, Simone Sanders-Townsend, and Michael Steele. And because of that, they also canceled Sanders-Townsend and Menendez's show. I'm not as familiar with Menendez, but Simone Sanders is as standard Washington news as they come. So it's not like they canceled her show because she's being too critical of power or too critical of Israel. So this goes to a whole revamping of the entire weekend. But to me, this also goes back to, what do you prioritize? Are you simply focused on the ratings, or do you understand how much of an asset someone like Mehdi Hasan is? And even if he is struggling in the ratings, maybe move him around, maybe give him a different slot, maybe give him a primetime slot during the week. Like, that's, if you value news, then you would understand how important Mehdi Hasan is to your network. But because they're canceling his show and just now using him as a fill-in host and an occasional guest, to me that shows me that MSNBC is not valuing the asset that they have. So they also moved Jonathan Capehart's show to a different time slot. Yasmin Vesuvian, her show will end. She will continue as a national reporter for MSNBC. And Alex Witt will expand to 3 hours. Ali Velshi, again, who I mentioned earlier, also one of the solid hosts on the network, is staying where he is and hosts 4 hours on the weekend. So this is why I'm torn on the reasoning behind this. Even though, again, if you valued Mehdi Hasan or understood his value, you would keep him in some kind of show or in his own show. But because they are keeping Ali Velshi where he is, and they're expanding Ayman to an extra hour, this isn't strictly about the perspective that these hosts are offering. Because if it was, they would get rid of Velshi, Ayman, and Mehdi Hasan, and they're not doing that. But you could argue Mehdi Hasan is clearly the most valuable of the three in the information he presents and how he presents it in his interview style, and they're deciding to cancel his show, which I think does say something. I just want to end on this as well, just going on the discussion around why the network may be struggling, at least, on the weekends. The viewership is very old. Like, this is from 2018, so I can imagine it's only gotten worse. But MSNBC, 24%. This is from, again, Public Opinion Strategies. MSNBC, 65 plus, 24%. They have a larger 65 plus viewership than Fox News, apparently, according to this. So that's a little concerning. And of course, largely white at 70%. Of course, Fox News more white, which also makes sense. But, a large, older white audience. There's also Pew Research here. Apparently, according to them, MSNBC has the oldest audience, which is kind of surprising. But if you look at the question, so they say here, people whose main political news source. So this is about main political news sources. Percentage who are blank among those who name each as their main source for political and election news. Young people, even if they're checking out Mehdi Hasan's clips on YouTube or Twitter, I don't think any of them would consider MSNBC, at least most of them clearly don't, to be their main source of news. Younger people typically, at least people that are, I shouldn't just generalize younger, but people that are following news, that are younger, tend to get their information from a variety of sources. So maybe that's why you're seeing NPR up here or New York Times, because there are, various hosts with different perspectives that I think are more clearly defined on a place like New York Times than on MSNBC. But regardless of the reasoning here, if this is the audience tuning into MSNBC, this older audience here, yeah, they're going to be less inclined probably to watch Mehdi Hasan, which unfortunately, he's the person they should be watching the most. They're the ones that, this is the audience, the older audience are the ones that need to watch Mehdi Hasan, because they're not going on YouTube. They're not going on TikTok. But it's just, when you have an older demographic, they're going to skew to what they are comfortable with. And that is not going to be Mehdi Hasan. That's going to be more like, Morning Joe. But again, I don't think it's strictly Mehdi Hasan's perspective or criticisms of Israel or even Joe Biden that have led to this position. I think it's a whole bunch of reasons, but clearly you can at the very least argue that MSNBC does not see the value that they have in Mehdi Hasan. They are not valuing the news over ratings.